This is the Coach's Wife Life podcast. I'm Kristen Eargle, your host, a former TV sports reporter and fellow college football coach's wife. I'll go one-on-one with the strong women who are the backbone of college athletics and athletics of all levels. And now, Coach's Wife Life.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
Hey there, I'm Kristen Eargle, and we have an exciting podcast ahead. But first I want to talk about something we all know way too much about, moving. Just the thought of that can bring an unsettling emotion. Well, I found a team that can take that load off your plate. It's D1 Relocation. This group can do it all. They can organize your move, coordinate with a moving company, and a trusted real estate agent. They can actually vet key household partners such as schools, insurance agents, physicians in the area. They can even help set up your Wi-Fi and water. It's incredible. So I've come to know this team, which is actually founded by a coach's wife. I think you should check it out, whether you're looking to move now or in the future. It's d1relocation.com. Now on to our awesome podcast. It's my honor to bring Melinda Wolford on the podcast. Melinda is the wife of Eric Wolford, offensive line coach for the Kentucky Wildcats. Thank you so much for being a part of us today.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to get to talk to you. We have very similar lives, and I can't wait to share your story with my listeners. Okay, if you're a listener of the podcast, you know I love stats. And I am really going to brag on your husband because he's an offensive line coach. And people don't talk enough about offensive line coaches and all the stuff that we do behind the scenes, right? So you might correct me on the years. Year 28 of coaching. Is that right? Close to it?
Yes.
All right.
Close to it. Yes.
Previously under Coach Nick Saban at Alabama in 23, guided an offensive line that blocked for the fourth best scoring offense in the SEC, 23rd best in the nation. 34 points per game, 12-2 record, SEC championship game, ending Georgia's 29-game winning streak, an appearance in the college football playoff, 3 All-SEC last year, and All-American. Prior to that, stops at Kentucky, South Carolina, a head coaching job at Youngstown State. There is some NFL time in there. I'm kind of going out of order. When you hear it all, tell me from your perspective, what makes him dynamic in his role?
Well, anybody that knows Wolf knows that he is passionate about what he does. He is the most passionate person. He doesn't take no for an answer. He gets away with comments and things that he does and says that nobody else does, just because he's got this dynamic kind of walk before your spirit personality in the room. So it really is about his spirit. He's a hard worker. He's a Youngstown guy. And anybody that knows anything about Youngstown knows they are like the hardest workers. They're biblical in their sense of doing everything you got with everything you can until you can't. Mm-hmm. And that's him. He's just got that spirit. He's I'm not taking no for an answer kind of guy. He's a full on, I'm with you, and I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to push you, and I'm going to get the best out of you and me at the same time kind of guy. So that's what's, I think, a little different about him than other coaches or maybe other people, but maybe just a little bit more of that spirit. Just O-line guys. I mean,
I love it. Okay. So I have to hear all the details. Did you ever see yourself as a coach's wife? Where did you grow up?
Oh, heck no. I grew up as a missionary kid, and my super, super protected in Africa, actually, without running water or electricity till I was 16. No, didn't even have. So when I came to the States to go to college, I was like, I will never marry a preacher, and I might as well have married a preacher because it's the same difference. It really is. It's the same spirit as those missionaries that I've been around and preachers that I've been around. And of course that's my path, but it's that same spirit of, I'm going to give it all to make a difference in the lives of other people. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that's what my husband's about. And yes, I think it's interesting, and I won't get off on my tangent, but college football has gone in a different direction, as we all know most recently. been blindsided a couple of times because I could never have imagined that we would have gotten into this place with college football, because it's about young men being developed. It's about young men being mentored. It's about, calling a parent and saying, hey, your kiddo's not doing what he needs to do, or calling a parent and saying, hey, your kiddo's top of the team. We're so proud of him. It's about mentoring them. And that's what a preacher does.
That's right.
A preacher shows up or a preacher or a missionary or a pastor shows up when a family has a kid that's sick or a family member that's sick, and they mentor that family. That's what my husband does. And that's what a lot of these coaches do that truly are college football coaches. So I'm really saddened by the changes that are coming. I mean, I'm sure that some of them are beneficial to our student athletes and their families, but it hurts my heart that really this is like a time of development in their lives. And overall, most of the coaches that stay in this profession do it because they care about the kids and about their development and about developing them, and they're not selfish about it.
That's right.
So
Because it's a hard role.
it's
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear. So you're growing up in Africa. You come over here for college. How did you ever meet Eric?
So I am the oldest of 8, and I came to the States and try to I'm much older than the next one. So I try to sort of develop this kind of home base for my brothers and sisters as they came to the States. And I worked lots of jobs, bought a house, and had like 4 jobs. And I was a professor at Texas Women's University because I'd already got my doctorate and had developed a practice and had a private practice. And Wolf took the job at North Texas, and he was the O-line coach there. And we met. It was like, to me, it was a God thing because we met one night after one of my classes that I was teaching, and it was like just new. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so you are
for 1 year, by the way.
You went now?
He was only there for 1 year.
I mean, that is God's timing right there, to your paths to cross all the way from Africa to get him to come to Dallas or Fort Worth, or where's North Texas? Denton, that's right. Denton. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So how many years have you been married?
22.
22 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you had already established a practice. Tell everybody what you do.
Well, I'm a school psychologist and a neuropsychologist, both. So I've done a lot of school psychology work, but a lot of neuropsychology work within the schools and outside of the schools. And I've done a lot of consulting across the United States now. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a licensure or a certification in 9 states at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I don't have one in Kentucky, and I don't have one in Alabama yet. So that's saying a lot.
Wow, incredible. So tell me about your kids. You have 2 children, right?
We have 2 children. Our oldest is Stone. He is 18. He was born with a very rare genetic condition that's life-threatening and very medically entailed, I guess the word is. We didn't know that when he was born. And that's what I had done for 15 years when I married Wolf. So, I mean, I had worked with those kinds of children, but when I had Stone, I was like lost. It took us 41 MDs to get a diagnosis. Ended up in debt to, beyond measure. I think we were around $200,000 in debt for all the therapies and medical expenses that we had because we didn't have a diagnosis. And I was an educated person who did this actual work. So we were really frustrated about all of that. And that's why we started our not-for-profit foundation, No Stone Unturned Foundation. So I can talk about that later. We also have a daughter who is 15 and about to move for the 3rd time in 4 years. So bless her heart. She's really struggling with that, but she's such a resilient kiddo. And I'm real proud of her. I know it's really hard for her, but we do have 2 children, Marley and Stone. Marley's 15, Stone's 18.
Love it. I want to hear a lot more about this. What has been some of the toughest adversity you have faced, and what did you rely on to get through those moments?
I absolutely do believe that Stone's journey has been the toughest adversity that we've experienced. On top of living a life that's so incredibly um, chaotic, exciting, um, unpredictable.
Unpredictable.
Mhm. And yeah. So, but just his journey has been really difficult, probably the hardest thing that we've dealt with in so many ways. But also at the same time, it's been defining in terms of who I am. I think I heard you say this earlier. You said it maybe to me before we talked online, but um, I wouldn't be the same person without him. I was very self-centered. I thought that the world revolved around me. And then having him really, many times in my life, I've realized that it's not about me. And that's so sad.
It
But
is sad.
it's so sad. But at the same time, the realization of that is not after you come through it, you look back and say, wow, that was supposed to be that way. Or, wow, life is so much richer because I understand that it's not about me. Dang it. But yes, just dealing with the things that with him and the tough nights and days of loving someone that much and feeling like you had no grip, or I had no grip, we had no grip, there was no hope, almost like grasping for that. I think that was probably the darkest. And there'll be more dark moments. Like
Sure.
we're promised in life that we're going to have dark moments. We're not promised sunshine and rainbows, and those are just rare, but and we embrace them. But when you ask me what got us through it, there's no doubt in my mind that faith is what got us through. Faith, hope, and this magical kind of thing of the people that we got to meet who surrounded us and embraced us and hold us up continually. Jumped on our wagon and really still to this day are there for us when we need them. And that's what's gotten us through that. And it's really a God thing. It's really a faith thing. It's really a community thing. It's really a interconnected human experience that's intertwined with the spiritual magic of it all.
You did a phenomenal job explaining that. It's hard to explain to others. I always say, like, it's before Landry and after Landry. I'm a different person. And you described it as your life is richer now.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably harder,
yes,
but richer. I want you to take me back, and I know we're going off script because, let's be real, I email questions in advance to my coaches' wives. It's okay. It's what I do. It's part of my thing. I love to give someone in advance. I have not given you these advance, so
that's okay.
we can just, if you want to cut it, we can. But I want you to take me back to the day that you realized that you were going to have a unique journey and your emotions that you experienced at that time.
Well, I'm going to go back further than that, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think when I was around 2 years old, this is the weirdest thing ever, but it's a spiritual walk. When I was around 2 years old, I literally remember God saying to me, "You've been called to do something really hard." Mm-hmm. And maybe that's because I grew up in a missionary family, and I was raising these two hippie style missionaries who, now they call them immersion missionaries, I guess. But I call them hippie missionaries because they were babies when they had me, and so I raised them. But I remember at 2 years old, I remember this calling, this voice saying to me, "You've got some big job here." I was like, "What?" whatever. And I said whatever and all those years. And there was a lot of other adversities that I faced as a young person. My mother died having a child when I was 10, and I raised her. My dad married an African woman, and there was a lot of hardships during that time. And now I'm the oldest of 8 children. So 4 that my mother had birthed, 1 that we had adopted during that time, and then my dad remarried, and there were 3 more. So all of them are amazing people, like God-given, spiritual, changing the world kind of people, all of them. And that's only because we were believers, and or that's what I think, and or we had a calling. But I remember that calling it too. What I didn't realize is that I was going to have all that adversity, give myself, or thought that I was giving my life to the service of other people and to my God, only to have a child with special needs. And so that's not fair. That's not fair.
Right.
But it happened. And once I got through that part, I realized that his difference and differences were going to make a difference in the lives of so many other people and so many other families. And that's not on me. That's him. That's what he's brought to the table. And that calling was for me to catapult what his situation is into service to other people. We started No Stone Unturned Foundation in 2008 because we didn't, Wolf and I are looking at each other like, nobody needs to go through this. This is ridiculous. Trying to get services, trying to keep a kid alive. He was supposed to die before he was 1. He was supposed to die before he was 4. He wasn't supposed to survive any of that, and he probably shouldn't have. Couldn't find the right formulas, couldn't find the right doctors, couldn't find the right interventions for him. And we managed, I don't know how, but again, I don't know how I kept a little girl alive when my mother died in Africa, and then I kept this little baby alive. Who knows? Like that poor child. But she's beautiful. She has 3 children. But at the end of the day, that calling was there to make a difference in the lives of other people. So we said, hey, what can we do to help other families get these services and not have to have the same narrative that you and I have had,
Right.
where nobody knew what to do. You go to one doctor and they say this, you go to another doctor, they say that, you go to another doctor, they're like, well, you don't have any clue. I'm going to refer you to that specialist who has no idea. So again, 41 doctors later, we finally get the 4th genetic test done, and we come back with a rare genetic syndrome. And that's not the same narrative for everybody in terms of a genetic syndrome, but it is the same narrative. I hear the same story over and over again, just a little different tweak for families that just need help for whatever their kids facing.
Yeah.
So we started No Stone Unturned, and my calling has really been about pushing for all services for any kid, no matter what their problems are, no matter what their differences are. It's a stutter to I can't walk, talk, eat, sleep, or poop, like whatever it might be. And again, I cannot take credit for it, because once we started that mission and calling, all the magic came in. And that's another story, probably like a 10-hour podcast. But now we have 42 full-time employees at No Stone Unturned. And right now we're just in Manhattan, Kansas. We're building a building. It's amazing how we're changing the lives of children and people. And that's other people coming as a result of Stone and his differences.
Wow. I always think to myself, if Landry had been born healthy, or if God had answered my prayer in the way that I prayed, would the people be impacted in the way? I'm asking you, if God had answered your prayers in the way that you had prayed them early on, would all this have happened?
No. No.
It's powerful, isn't it, to think about the influence, the impact in so many children. I mean, you have all these employees that are just hands and feet doing the mission. That's incredible. And it's changed you, I'm sure, just night and day. I mean, do you help run some of that, or are you on the board? How does that work for you specifically?
Yeah, I do. I'm very involved. It's a daily thing, but I have to say that the people that are involved in our foundation are very special. We had 6 founding board members that gave blood, sweat, tears, and time, which is very valuable. Only one of those board members have a special needs child, and she has 2 actually. And then now I think we're up to 26, I think, board members as of the last couple of weeks. Our executive director is probably one of the smartest people I know. And we hired her literally in December before COVID hit.
Wow.
And she kept us alive. We run a therapeutic learning center, so we provide all kinds of services, but the difference is that they're very integrated and very collaborative and cooperative, so that our therapists work together. We also add behavior therapists into the mix of OT, PT, speech. We do feeding. Oh goodness, I'm going to miss out on what all we do because we do so many things. We've done also, it's water therapy, but it's swim therapy. We had 2 different theoretical models, and it made a huge difference. We don't have a pool right now, but we're hoping to have one of those in the future. We hope to include animal types of therapies in our mix, but it's really a very unique theoretical model. And like I said, we're building a building right now, but we wouldn't be here without the people that had given lifeblood and tears. And our previous executive director was only part-time because we didn't have the money to do it. And she contributed quite a bit as well. I mean, in terms of all of it, but it was about people giving their time and just the magic of that whole community coming together. There's a term in I grew up in Kenya. So there's a term in Kenya that's a Swahili term, and you might have heard it actually. It's called Harambee. Harambee is when people come together to create something that we can't do alone. So it's a collaborative, cooperative kind of mission. And Harambee is when somebody's house burns down and the whole group come together and they Harambee to build somebody's house, or they need a community center or a school or whatever. So that's really what this is about in our term, is that it's a Harambee over time where we've all come together as a community to build this with intentions of it making a difference across the country. We truly intend to provide these kind of services across the country as we can. It takes time, but every town I've been in needs it. My kiddo needs it. And of course, we move all the time. And so he hasn't really been able to benefit from the services that are there unless I take him out there for a week or 2. When he was younger, I did that a couple of times and it was really helpful. But he doesn't live there, so he doesn't get those services. But we want to provide those services across the country. And so I'm getting on that whole tangent of no stone, but that's our call.
Incredible. And it's amazing how fast it's grown. And a credit to you. I love that. Take me to some of the things you encountered, some of your toughest moments, and that you knew that maybe some things you encountered together, or what his needs look like now, some things that you tackle now together, and how you've been able to incorporate that from a coach's wife who you're also trying to minister to the players. And you have another daughter that you're trying to handle her schedule as well. So walk me through some of that.
Oh goodness, that's a lot.
That's a 5-part question, didn't I? Okay.
A 5-part question. Let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story? I'm a storyteller, and I'm sorry if I talk too much because my husband calls me short story long, but I'll try to make this short. So at the beginning of the year, we're in our transition. So we're still in Alabama. The family's still in Alabama. Wolfie's already in Kentucky, which we're moving that way. But this past season, we were in Alabama. Past 2 seasons. And so at the beginning of the Alabama season, the first Sunday before the season starts, we go to Calvary Baptist Church. Now, this church is like historical. It's just historical. And so we all go as a team and as coaches' families to service on Sunday morning. And so we walk into service and we sit down, and Stone is not very good in those kinds of settings. And so I'm answering part of your 5-part question in that the effects that it has in terms of him and the team and that kind of thing. That's where I'm going with this. So we're just kind of muddled up because we're on buses and we just go sit wherever. And we're sitting in pews, and Stone is sitting next to me, and there's he's a running back sitting behind us. His name is Roydell Williams. And Roydell is sitting behind us, and Stone is like all over the place, like a 2-year-old. He's 18, okay? And he's like all over the place. So most people in the room were like around him were like super uncomfortable, like just kind of avoiding his eye gaze and whatever, and trying to like just act like he's not acting weird. And so he's all over the place. And he's turning around the pew, looking at Roydell, staring at Roydell. And we're you stand up, everybody stand. So we're standing up. Roydell reaches across, touches his shoulder, looks him in the face, and says, "You got this, bud." The look on Stone's face. I mean, I couldn't even listen to the sermon and the awards that they were giving. I couldn't do any of it because all I could think about was that interaction was so incredibly magical on so many levels. And I don't know if I can help people who don't have a special needs child understand this.
Yeah.
But after the sermon, Stone turned around, sat down through the entire service.
It's beautiful.
After the service was over, I quickly turned around. I grabbed Roydell and I pulled him to me, and I said, "Buddy, did you see the moment that he felt seen and heard?" And he looked at me, and I saw his face light up, and he was like, "I did. I saw it." And I said to him, "Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you," because nobody says or, reaches out. Nobody takes the time to see and hear him. Roydell walked us out the church building. Now, this church building is 5 million years old, and the steps are horrible. Stone has horrible depth perception. He's falling down the stairs. Roydell's carrying him down the stairs. Stone's 100 pounds, and Roydell's, weight 250 or 300 pounds. Anyway, we get outside, and he was just precious. And so I think about that for a couple of days, and I forget to say anything. Of course, things are chaotic. And I walk into the coach's office, and I said, "Oh, Wolf, I forgot to tell you, Roydell." He goes, "Wait." Roydell came to my office to tell me this story.
Wow.
And Roydell's a running back.
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" Wolfie is an offensive line coach.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Well, that's awesome. Cool." So I go to tell his position coach that the story. He goes, he already told me. He came and told me all about it. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a lot of words is that it made an impact on Stone that was visible and long lasting, but it made an impact on that kiddo in that forever and ever, he's going to notice and pay attention to kids with special needs. And it really did make a difference. It was like magic. It was so cool.
Wow. That's incredible. That's something that you'll remember forever. He will remember forever.
We'll remember
But
forever.
it's just, I was with you. I mean, the whole time with just tears, because when people connect, make an effort to connect, it's beyond anything that you can describe to other people. And
Well, and
go ahead.
on another note, I wanted to share that I had sent that video that they did, the special they did. And one of the things that I found so impactful for me as a wife and a mom is when they did the interview with my husband about Stone, and he talked about this. They did this separately. They interviewed us separately. And one of the things that was so impactful for me is listening to my husband say, I thought I was going to have a football player and he was special needs. But his legacy is this No Stone Unturned Foundation that's going to make a difference in other people's lives. And that's okay with me. That was powerful for me. That was in a nutshell. There's a lot more I could say about that. But at the end of the day, that was so powerful for me too, in that what Stone's brought to the table has made a difference in lives and will forever, or at least I hope so, for many years in the lives of other people. That wouldn't have happened had he been a typical kid.
Wow. I watched that, and for my viewers here, I will link it so that you can watch the story on their family. I'm in tears the whole time. I guess my question for you is, what specific things, and the more I talk about Landry, the more we talk about, I find there's other families like us out there. So do you have any tips or anything, how you've walked through this, managed your time? What have you made a priority in a career where he's gone so much and your child has such, intense needs?
It's just my life. I don't know how to answer that. That's a good question. I guess a lot of it is faith-based, but again, I just see him as being such there's moments, I'm not gonna lie. There's moments, but I just see him as being such a light for other people and such an inspiration in many ways. And not everybody sees it that way. And that's their walk. Not everybody sees it that way. Some people find him extremely annoying, and he shouldn't be at a game, or he shouldn't be, he should be at a game. I don't know. There's a lot of judgment in our culture, but at the end of the day, I think I see him as being such a light. It's a lot for the moves, getting special education and finding the medical care that you've already established. Like when we moved here, right now we have 11 MD doctors. And when I say that, I mean, we're talking about the main doctors, and then you have all the other assistants that go along, the practitioners and the nurses and all those the people that really are doing the work most of the time, instead of just the MDs. But right now we have 10, and so, or no, I think we're up to 11, but now we're fixing to move again, so we start all over again. That's a lot.
That's really hard. To me, that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Until they learn them and then adjust things, and everybody wants to put their spin on it. And you're like, no, this is what's been working. That's right. The hard part.
You have to be firm and strong. And I have had when he was younger, I had a pediatrician say to me, you be the mom and let me be the doctor. And this was at a point where nothing was getting done. And I said, well, you be a doctor so I can be a mom. Like, be a doctor so I can be a mom. Like, what are you saying to me? Because I'm sure doctors and I get granted to them, I know it's a lot of work, but I'm sure doctors get a lot of moms saying, here's what I want you to do. But I've been really fortunate that a lot of the doctors I've worked with do hear me.
Yeah.
and I bring so much information with me. They're like, okay, you've been doing this for a while. Maybe I should listen a little bit to this.
Right. I think the more you can bring with them, and then I also have found it helpful for the old physicians to call the new physicians and do a transfer of care. I feel like that's kind of been helpful for us. I feel like if I were to have your husband on the podcast, he would say that there's some things that you've done that's actually helped him be successful in where he is today as an offensive line coach in the SEC. And you won't brag on yourself. I'm going to make you do it. So what would he say?
I'm a good recruiter.
Are you? I can tell. I have enjoyed. I'm like, where have you been all of my life?
I fall in love with people, and I fall in love with those moms and the kids, and I think I'm a good recruiter. I think that's probably the best thing I bring. I try to support him. I'm probably sometimes a little bit hard on my husband, but I love him and I adore him, and I think that I take care of the home, which we all do. But I take care of the stuff at home so he doesn't have to do that. And I think that helps a lot too. I shield him from a lot. I definitely, what is it? When you, I help him stay in that coaching bubble, as Miss Terry always calls it, like the coaching bubble where they believe that that's the real world. So I do facilitate that. That's probably not very healthy, but it does. But that's their world. So
okay, so I have two follow-ups to this. It's going to take two different turns. We're going to have a 2-part series with you, by the way. You're fascinating. I feel like a 3-part series. So we're going to go over on this side. I'm going to ask you. We'll come back to some other things, but give me some of the greatest things, Miss Terry. You've been a head coach's wife before, and now you're an assistant's wife, and then I've been a head coach's wife before. So like changes the way you view things completely. You didn't see it before that way. So now seeing it, you never know, one day you might be a head coach's wife again. What are some of the things that you're like, man, she did that really, really well?
Miss Terry?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. She manages him. She manages Coach Saban so well. That is her. She is just really good at it. She's really good at recruiting. She's really good at embracing the people around her. She's very good at encouragement. She's very down to earth. I don't know. There's a lot of favorite things I have about Miss Terry. She's very supportive in what we do. One of the things I love about her most, I think, let me think. The thing I love about her most is her philanthropism, her giving. She's super philanthropic, and she does Habitat for Humanity. She runs Nick's Kids. They're building a children's museum right now, hands-on children's museum that she's super excited about. She just does a lot for the community. I really appreciate that. She's pretty amazing.
When you talked about keeping Coach in the bubble, right? So that he can focus on those things. Yeah. I find that really hard to do since I've had Landry. It was really easy when I had my healthy kid and it was just her, and it wasn't there. She was there very close in age. It wasn't very long, but it was just like everything was just pretty systematic. With Landry's needs, they're heavy, right? And there's a lot to discuss. And how do you do that? And then where do you go for support yourself if you can't call him every single time that you feel like this is kind of a big decision, or that, oh man, he's struggling with this again? What is your support system?
My husband is very supportive of me. I tend to prefer to do it on my own and then give him the soft landing because it is so intense. I mean, I think there were times where I didn't know what to do and I think coming from my background, delivering that message across the table to other families so many times, and now finding myself on the other side, I had that kind of empathy. But he is, my husband is so incredibly, we're going to mourn this for 24 hours. If it's a loss or it's a win, we're going to celebrate for 24 hours. We're going to mourn it for 24 hours, and then we're going to move on. So he doesn't let it affect every next decision that you're going to make. So when we get really bad news, we take it in, he's upset, but then we get through it and we move on to the next thing. And I throw some stats in here. One of the things that I've, seen and learned and experienced with so many of the families I've worked with is that probably 89 at the last stat was 89% of marriages of families of children with special needs end in divorce because of all the conflict. And I think me handling a lot of the things that are going on without involving him has been helpful, so that I get my support from him, but not involving him where he has to have all the details. I don't know if that makes any sense, and probably that's fair. But for us, that's what's worked, is because that's not, I know what's going on with it with Stone, and I get a lot of those pieces, whereas that's a foreign country for him. That's a foreign language for him.
Yeah.
So it's too overwhelming to involve him with all those pieces of information. To kind of lead him in a softer way has been helpful. But where do I get my support? I get my support from the community that I'm surrounded by, especially with our not-for-profit. Really, the people in that community get me, know what I need. Especially the other families that have kids with special needs. You've got to get yourself involved with people who have like needs that can support you and completely understand where you're at. So.
Wow, that's powerful right there.
Mm-hmm.
You've given tough information across the table with other families, and you've helped navigate those emotions. And you have a unique perspective because we feel this. You may not have a special needs child, viewers out there who are coaches' wives, but they go through loss, right? Loss of jobs, loss of hope, thinking they're going to get taken on a staff, promised jobs, all these kind of emotions we navigate a lot with our children. They're navigating in a different way. So what do you say to keep someone encouraged? Like a husband who says, I thought we were going to get this job, or we were winning and didn't get retained. Like, how do you navigate that? How do you keep him encouraged when you walk through some of this?
I do not have to keep him encouraged. And there are times, yes, I do build him up, but I think one of the things that Wolfie has done for me is that 24-hour rule. And going to bed, like, it says in the Bible, don't go to bed mad, but it's really, I think, let it go. Like he lets it go, because we're going to have differences. We're going to disagree. He's not in the house. He's coaching football, and football's his world. I'm living this life, and I'm dealing with all the adversity and the chaos of the move. Like when they get a new job, let's face it, they pack up their little bin.
A little bit.
It's a black and yellow bin that says work stuff that I help him pack. Okay. Thanks, Wolfie, if you ever watch this podcast. But they pack up their little bin and they just get on, or I drive them over to the next place, drop them off, and come home to the chaos of selling, fixing a home, selling a home, moving, all the medical stuff, all the school stuff. And those of us who don't have special needs kids, it's just as hard. Like there's just transitioning to the next hair person. Like unbelievable. So, but they're already doing a job. And yes, I'm not saying it's easy for them, but they're doing the same job, the same kind of work. And we're like in complete, a tornado here. Yeah. So I think he's taught me a lot, even though he doesn't deal with a lot of this other stuff. He's taught me a lot in, okay, we win a game. We won the SEC championship this year. That did not protect us. You think you won an SEC championship, you're not going to get let go. Well, that's wrong because it happened. So you go to national playoffs and you get let go. Like that happens even when you're winning and you're doing well, when you're not expecting it. And so his rule has been from the beginning, in every fight we've had, every win we've had, every loss we've had, 24 freaking hours. Move on. Celebrate for 24 hours, move on. Be mad for 24 hours, move on. And I think that's been extremely helpful for me in navigating all of the chaos that we're dealing with, all the stuff with Stone, you know, the diversity that we experience in our lives makes us more resilient. And it just really, you know, you think about that from, okay, look at all the things we've got. Look at all the things we can be grateful for and move on. 24 hours.
Your daughter's response, Marley, right?
Yes.
Tell me her response to living with Stone and all the changes that she goes through as a coach's kid. That's a totally different parenting.
I am not, it is not my favorite part of parenting a 15-year-old daughter. I will say that. It's very difficult. And sometimes even more difficult to me than parenting Stone. In a different way.
Yeah.
But yes, it's been very difficult for her because we've moved 3 times in 4 years, and she's coming in from volleyball right now. And it's been hard on her. It's been really hard on her. But what she and I talk about a lot is look at all these amazing experiences that you have. And one of the things that she's dealt with as a young teenage girl, which I know many of our coaches' families have dealt with, high school, moving in high school, coming into a new high school situation with girls that are already established, and we call them mean girls, but really they just are already established and may have been there their whole lives. And so they don't have any other perspective whatsoever. And they already have their friendships and they already have their way of thinking and way of doing things. And then you've got this kid that comes in that's a coach's kid that might be really pretty, that might be a threat to you. And it just creates these dynamics for drama. It's like, okay, the fire is on for that to happen. And so she's gone through that a number of times. And we talk about that a lot, and it is really hard for her. But one of the other things we continue to go back to is you have so much of a broader perspective and a sense of diversity that they don't have. And you are way more resilient. And I think that's another problem for our kids too, is that they have experience, and I call her worldly, but I don't mean that in an ugly way. I mean that in a way that she's experienced so many different cultures and so many different places that you can do that. We can do that as an American or as Americans online all the time, but unless you're actually in it, you don't really understand it. But she has a perspective that's very different from her peers. And I, it's like a missionary kid. Like I tell her that all the time you're like a missionary kid, or a military kid,
right?
Experienced all these things and all these different diverse cultures within the United States. And, you know, you see things differently than your peers because they've been here since they were in kindergarten, and they, you know, at this school since they were in kindergarten. Their parents went to the school, their grandparents went to the school. So they don't have a perspective that's broader than ours. And so she goes, I'm an alien.
I know.
I don't care. But she finds her spot. And I think our kids, and experiencing other coaches' children, especially those who've gotten the chance to go a lot of places, I see them as being more mature in a lot of ways and a lot more resilient than other kids of their same age.
And I think it benefits them years from now. They don't really see it in the moment. It burns in the moment.
Right.
But when you collect that years from now, they will respond differently to adversity much later on. Okay, so last two questions before we hit rapid fire. How do you guys stay connected? Do you do date nights? Like, what's your thing?
With my husband?
Yes.
So Thursday nights are supposed to be date night. As we all know, it is according to the head coach's personality as to whether you get date night.
So are you saying it maybe what didn't always happen the last couple?
No, date nights don't always happen. But I will say, and I think one of the questions you asked me, and I'm gonna kind of divert this question over to that. My answer to a question you asked online. Who were my mentors?
Yeah.
And Jerry Spurrier, top. Denise Zook, top. Really like created this culture for us of family where we had our date nights, and they insisted that we do that. And we had these family moments where we came together as a group of the coaches' wives and the coaches, and we spent time together as family. And so I think those two women really shaped my idea of what being in this coaching field and creating that kind of family culture was about. And I really do appreciate that from it as a young person, getting to be a part of that. We try to shoot for those moments, like we're about to do this next week is one of those weeks or weekends that we cherish.
Yes, for
After
sure.
Sunday, you get this special weekend and we go all out. Spring break is hard because a lot of our kids don't have the same spring break as.
Never matches up, does it?
Well, it does in Alabama. I don't know why it doesn't anywhere else. Like, I think that's the most brilliant thing that Tuscaloosa does is that we have the same spring break.
Lines up.
Oh, it should line up. But those little times that we have time together, we make the most of.
Yeah. Okay, what would you say is the most rewarding part about being a coach's wife?
Wow. I would say the people that we get to collect along the way, because we truly do get to pick who we spend our time with. And that's really rare because we find these amazing people along the way. And I think a lot of people in our culture stay in the same place their whole lives. And even if they move, they might move once or twice. We get to find and experience cultures and these people that are just incredible. And that's what I value most, is the relationships along the way.
Rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
What's the last book you have read?
Oh my goodness. I can't pick one. Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown. The Covenant of Water. Who wrote that book? It'll come to me. Green Light, Matthew McConaughey.
I never do blank at a game.
I never do. I'm not so superstitious that I don't have these rituals that I don't miss a card. I write a card to Wolf for every single game with pictures and a 1971 penny on it. So I never miss a card. There you go.
I like this.
With scripture, yeah.
If you could have dinner with someone other than a family member, current or from history, who would it be?
Oh, Jesus, of course. But I would also love to have I just sit down with Faith Hill for a little while and
Faith Hill.
Girl.
That would be fun. You get a night alone. What show are you binge watching?
Schitt's Creek.
What's your go-to meal to cook?
Oh goodness. That's a hard one because we're all so diverse in what we eat. But Wolfie loves to cook, and so he does steak and sweet potatoes.
Ooh, yum. What sport can you beat Wolfie in?
Any card game.
Nice. Do other people call him Wolfie or just you?
Other people call him Wolfie.
Just making sure. Okay. What would be your walk-up song?
This girl is on fire.
Love it. That's incredible. Okay. How can someone be a part of No Stone Unturned?
Well, I think you're going to share the website. Really just spreading the news of what we do, and donating to us is huge because we're trying to expand across the nation. We're building a 20,000 square foot building right now. We're in the middle of a capital campaign. We are actually, for the first time this year, since 2008, in the absolute black, which means we're self-sustaining in terms of the therapies that we're doing. We're able to collect the monies we need to sustain them, but we're always in need. And then we want to start, as soon as we get settled in this building and practicing, we want to start satelliting across the country.
Love, love, love it. Thank you so much for your vision and your heart and being so open and honest. It's been a joy, Melinda.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
For a replay of this episode or previous episodes, visit coacheswifelife.org and follow us on social media at Coaches Wife Life.